Benvenuti su Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, un podcast di Bocconi Alumni in cui ascolteremo storie professionali di eccellenza. L'ospite di oggi è Margherita Della Valle, Chief Executive Officer Vodafone Group.
I don't think you can say there is one moment, right? No one here, I think, would say that. I think what stands out for me has been the multiple moments in which I made decisions for change. The first change was actually many years ago, 30 years ago, when I left what was at the time a very large Italian multinational in a comfortable position to join a startup in an industry that no one knew about. And I left Milan actually as well at the time to join Omnitel. And then I left at some point marketing for finance, because the first part of my career was in marketing. And then, of course, at some point I left Italy to move internationally. And these have all been choices that probably start with the word leaving. Yeah, I say I left for, but I think they have been the big bets where I took the risk of leaving something behind for something new, and this has made all the difference. I need to say, in terms of what I was following by leaving the past for the future, I was taking big bets on things like roles and functions and that type of things, but I was always following people. Okay. The big principle of my working life has always been to choose the people you work for. Choose your boss. That's all that matters, not the title, not the rest. As long as it's an interesting challenge with the right boss, then you learn. And that's what I've been following. In terms of early career, I think what made the big difference to me was really the variety of the roles. I was saying I took some bets, but Vodafone took many bets on me. I was running normal marketing activities and someone stopped me in a corridor and say, "What did you actually graduate on?" And I said, "Bocconi." And he said, "Oh, then it's okay." And I was wondering, okay, for what? Would you like the job of controller of the company? Why not? So I had the opportunity to really see the company from a variety of angles. And I think this shaped my approach to what I would describe as teamwork. Because I think if you have done different jobs in different functions, and also importantly for me, some in HQ, some in markets, you see all the sides, then it's easy to put yourself in the shoes of the people you work with. And that makes all the difference in getting the team to function. An example I always use is about finance, where obviously I spent a lot of time. I always was obsessed to have people in finance that had different roles in their career. Sometimes, especially in the UK, you tend to have finance people who have a long-standing, qualified accountant, focused career. And I always wanted to have people, for example, in the controlling function for the networks, if I think about Vodafone, people who had been in engineering and had built the network, or people like me that have been in marketing, if you want to control the marketing function. I think this helps because then you speak the same language and you understand the needs. A typical mistake that finance people do, without offense, I'm sure there are lots of I'm not talking financial services, just finance functions, is they stand with their business partners and say things like, the business case doesn't work, your price is too low. If they have also been on the other side, they don't stop there. They add important sentences such as, the price is too low, but I understand why you need the decision fast because your competitor has changed pricing this morning. And yes, it's too low, but instead of doing this, have you considered to do this or this? And it makes the conversation much richer. And as I was saying, the same for me is really important to break the silo in the company for the typical behaviors between HQ and subsidiaries that tend to be also siloed. So I think that made a difference. First of all, you should all know that I've been CEO for less than 18 months now. So take everything I'm going to say as that's what I try to do, that's what I'm doing, but I don't have anything to sort of say it works. I don't associate challenge at all to the role, and it's not to dismiss it. Everything is very difficult and very challenging, but for me it was like opening the door to a land of opportunities, not challenges, because you can imagine that being in the same company for 30 years and having seen all parts of it, I had very strong views on what could change. And so suddenly someone gives you the keys and you say, wow, now we can make it happen. And if I take the last 12, 18 months in Vodafone, we have changed a lot of things. We have changed the markets in which we have chosen to operate. We've changed the type of activities we do from, if you want, focused on B2C, which is what you probably all mostly know about Vodafone, to B2B. We have changed the organization, radically simplified the organization. We have changed the team. We have changed our relationship with the tech companies. And most important of all, we are working on changing the culture. And as everyone, my board, etc., everyone says to change the culture, it takes years. I disagree with that. And we have taken some really important steps to this is, I mean, if you're on the inside, you get it more than, I think it will look very stupid to you, but focus the company all around customers. And it's basic, yeah? You all work in different companies, and I think everyone tries to do that. But if you are coming from the inside of the telco industry, you would know that telcos have been really bad at focusing on servicing their customers. Typically in a telco, you have engineers who are very passionate about their networks. So we build the best networks, no problem with that. But as soon as you get to the basic connecting, disconnecting a customer, answering calls in a call centers, it's a disaster. So we have changed incentives, careers, obviously budget allocations, you name it, to really refocus the customer on the only thing the company on the only thing that matters, which is customers need to choose us. And that, I need to say, even after 12 months, I've been quite surprised by the change it has created, because everyone in the company wants to give a good service to the customers. Everyone believes in it. So it has mobilized a lot of energy. And now we are number one, for example, in customer satisfaction in the UK for the very first time in our history after the last 18 months. And so everything is changing. To drive change, you need people to believe that change needs to happen and that the current situation is not good enough. And I think you really need a strong sense of purpose and urgency from my perspective. So I worked very hard to create both. And if I start with urgency, to give you an example, I remember the feeling of, okay, I need to record the first message to all the employees. And my first message to all the employees was very driven by the need to create the urgency, because I was the internal candidate. I walked out of my office and I saw everyone was celebrating, yeah, big wave of, they were super happy because, you know, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. And I thought, okay, so all these people now are going to think that because it's me, it's all going to be fine. Nothing is going to change. So I recorded this terrible message, which says something along the line, sounds a bit like Politburo, but Vodafone must change, and it's going to be very hard. Make no mistake. I genuinely wanted to be honest with them. We need to redo everything. So make no mistake, change starts now. Telecoms. I could speak for hours, so I will try to keep it brief and also not cry too much, because I'm going to share with you how sad I am about the state of the telco industry in Europe. I think we need to talk about this. But of course, we also need to talk about artificial intelligence. I would, however, like to start from, so the two trends I think everyone needs to know about telcos are, One is about what we call the industrial internet, and the second is indeed about artificial intelligence. And I'll start with the industrial internet because many people think about telcos as the companies that gave you the smartphones, 4G, you access the internet, social networks explode all through for a few years ago. Today, it's very different. Today, the big change that we are driving is not for consumers, it's for businesses. Because we are now connecting machines with each other, sensors with each other. That's where they need 5G network, automating factory, logistics, transport, you name it. And not many people yet experience that and see that. And I think this has been behind the fact that then Europe is really struggling. The European networks are the worst in the world, except Africa. All other regions of the world have overtaken us, including South America. They have better networks, better speeds, better everything. And this is because Europe has interpreted telcos as essentially a consumer service, where at the end of the day, as long as you have connections, it's okay. And the quality of the network doesn't matter that much. And so the choice was, let's get the lowest prices in the world. We've been very successful because we have more than 100 networks in Europe. So super competition, prices very low. And sadly, investments equally very low. Because of a lot of value destruction in the process. No scale for operators like us. The average European network serves 5 million people. The average US network serves 100 million. Let's not go to China or other countries in the world. We are unique in that. So I stopped crying about that because I think it's going to change in the future. But I just want to say artificial intelligence is coming. And I think with artificial intelligence, obviously, you need good networks. You need speed. You need low latency, immediate conversations. And I think businesses will need that. But very soon also consumers will realize they really need that. I think some of you in this room before Christmas are going to buy the first smartphones with artificial intelligence. Don't expect much, very early days, but over time we will all have our AI agent in our devices that will, I don't know, book travel for us or whatever, even as consumer, and that will need good infrastructure. So it's important that Europe changes, and I think we are possibly on the way. What I can tell you is what we are doing about it, which is looking for scale wherever we operate. So in the UK, we are doing a merger with another company now, with a big investment plan to upgrade the networks and make sure we give the good service. But it's been a bit of a crisis in the last 10 years in Europe, and it's good to see that now I think also the EU in the last week or weeks is starting to refocus attention on we need investment competition, not just the lowest prices. We need the lowest price for the best quality. I think my biggest problem with the various generations is particularly, I think, in large companies, it's very easy that you effectively block the growth of the younger talent. And everything is processed, and it ends up being very slow and very demotivating, of course. I'll give you an example. One of the things I introduced to create a bit of discomfort was, again, very basic stuff, was forced calibrations of talent. Yeah, you can have up to X% top talent, or you can have up to X% top performer, and you need to have the bottom performers as well. So my HR director came to me saying, great news, all the functions, all the markets, everyone has calibrated, they all respect your rules, you have 20, and I start on the let's talk about the good side, 20% top talent everywhere. I said, great. Can I see the distribution of this by seniority? Grade, you say in the company. And guess what? Yeah, the closer you were to the top, the more talent was abundant. Yeah, 40% of the senior leadership team was top talent with a great career into ExCo. And then you go into the younger generations and the less senior role, and you go down to 10%, 5%, 5%. I was like, how can we have only 5% that can move to the next level in the younger generation? So I think the system works against that. Obviously, the HR director has gone back and now everyone has the same percentage. But we really need to create talent rotation and that's the most important thing for motivation, right? People need to have the possibility to grow. I'm always at discomfort of saying this because I'm so old, but I think it's really important that we mix things up. We are very lucky in our business, or so we think, because what we do is connectivity, and connectivity is a force for good. It changes society, it helps growth. So a purpose for us is very important because most of us employees have joined the company because we believe in the power of connectivity. So we really feel this big sense of responsibility. I would say we look at it in two different ways, the second more important than the first. The first is what I call, for simplicity now, purpose filters. It's two criteria and everything we do need to pass those criteria. The first is inclusivity and the second is protect the planet. Yeah, if we are a force for good, we need to open the access to everyone. And then, of course, we need to use it for the good of the planet. And we are very proud, like many other companies, of things like first telco to do 100% renewable energy for the whole of Europe 5 or 6 years ago. Our net zero target for Europe is 2028, not 2040, etc., etc. But that's, for me, is a bit the hygiene factor. What makes the real difference and what motivates us is when we can really use our technology and innovate to drive big changes. I'll share one example, which is the one we are probably most proud of in Vodafone. About 10 years ago, one of our employees invented mobile money. He was in Kenya and obviously saw the fact that everyone had a phone by then in some shape or form, but banks weren't present in rural Kenya. So we set up a system to do first money transfers across handsets, and then it evolved into all sorts of financial services. Companies pay payroll now, we do loans, insurance, what have you. So that is, to this day, the very largest fintech platform in the whole of Africa. And it has transformed economies, truly, because imagine in these rural areas, the fact that you can suddenly access financial services for what I would call agricultural entrepreneurs, women who needed financial independence, right? A big transformation. Today, more than 50%, we operate in 8 countries in Africa, more than 50% of the GDP of the countries in which we operate transits through the platform. So obviously that makes a real difference, and thinking about how can we best apply our technology to really change the world is something that motivates our people every day. Many years ago, we switched from what I would call checkbook charity to also link the activities of our foundation to our technology, because that's how we amplify the impact. So instead of distributing, we spend in our foundation around 40-50 million a year. Instead of saying I give a grant here, a grant there, because I don't know, it's my neighbors, I want to be nice to the city I live in, we have said, where can we have the biggest impact? And it's always linked to the job we do every day and the job we know how to do. So actually, I'm going to give you another example. It's something I'm super passionate about, linked to M-Pesa, because we have launched a service through the foundation called M-Mama. And M-Mama is now in 2 or 3 countries in Africa. And the purpose of M-Mama is to bring support, emergency healthcare to women during labor. In those countries, you can be in labor in a rural area, something goes wrong, you don't have access to healthcare, and it can go terribly wrong. And today, in Tanzania, which was the first country where we launched M-Mama, I'll explain how it works in a minute. And I couldn't believe the numbers when I saw it. I'm a numbers person. We have managed to reduce infant mortality and the mother's mortality, both of them, by 40% in the whole of the country. We are talking about thousands of women and children saved every year. And how? Again, an employee came up with this idea. We have M-Pesa, we can make the money travel, and we have comms and phones. So basically, we have created a network of volunteers in the villages, in the islands. They may have a car, they may have a boat, they may even have a horse, but we can contact them. We have like a little central, in the case of an emergency, we contact the volunteer. The volunteer is ready to transport the woman to the hospital, and we transfer the cost of the transport, so the fuel for the car, through M-Pesa directly to the volunteer so that he can pay for the fuel, and this happens. And the foundation obviously, I don't know, paid to upgrade the hospitals, paid to set up the volunteers. But now this thing works by itself and is super efficient to run, to the point that it's now being rolled out in the entirety of sub-Saharan Africa by the World Bank with USAID, because we give them technical support. And I think this is what the foundation does: experiment with the use of technology in a way which is entirely not for profit, to then create an amplification opportunity. ESG has lots of issues. I'm sure we can talk for hours, but I think it's a fantastic drive to align what we all want to do as people in our companies and the interest of our investors and the wider economy. And so things like 5 or 6 years ago, when I was CFO, I introduced, for example, purpose criteria in our supply chain. So you need to fill a scorecard, product, quality, price, whatever, for us to buy from you. 20% of the criteria to choose who we buy are now, since then, based on how are they doing for inclusiveness and planet, etc. Well, now our customers do this to us. Yeah, when I want to sell my connectivity to my big corporate customers, they check on me. How is she doing on inclusivity, diversity, or the planet? And that's great, because then profit and purpose come together automatically. It's not a trade-off anymore. So I think we need actually more of that, done well, but more of that. So in terms of advice, the point I'm really passionate about is that women should be themselves, should not change, actually. Be yourself and actually leverage the superpowers that sometimes being a woman today actually gives you. I think throughout our career, we have been receiving a lot of advice around essentially be more like a man. Yeah, be confident like a man, occupy space. So sure, you are around the table, occupy some mental space and whatever. Raise your voice, even I had once. Well, actually, first of all, this is completely wrong, because it's still responding to some leadership criteria which are not valid anymore, not even for the men, by the way. It's not about men and women. It's just, everyone is different styles. But also the world is changing around us very, very fast. And more, I think we are going to move, and sometimes we already are, from a situation in which the women need to learn how to, for example, interview like a man, because it's a man they have in front. And actually men need to learn on how to interview with women as well. And I can assure you there are differences. And we just need to be ourselves, I think, in all circumstances. And then the second point is that actually, because there is so much attention on diversity now, which is great, even if you are the only woman around the table, it's an opportunity, because more often than in the past, certainly, and more in the future, people will be looking for your opinion, because people now understand the importance of diversity. So they look for diversity. Well, use that platform, I would say, to be more visible, as opposed to try and adapt old-fashioned leadership styles. On the change by women point, I need to say, I still remember, I was thinking, as you said, I can still tell you exactly what happened in 2 occasions in my working life where I saw, I'm very old, so I'll say it up front, but I saw women in position of power sitting on the other side of whatever table I was sitting on. And even if I knew women could be in position of power, just seeing it in action, seeing my bosses looking at these women as their bosses, I was like, oh, Oh, so it can work. And I can tell you exactly who it was and when it was, because it really stayed with me. And therefore, I think that's why I think today it's important that as women, we stand up to be counted, we show up with initiatives or discussion, because I think it still has a value to show that actually you can be different, but it can work as well. I come from a family with 3 generations of Bocconi women. My mother graduated in economics in the 50s. In the 50s. And then my niece, I have only sons, my niece graduated 2 years ago. So clearly, we are very passionate about it. And for me, I mean, I met my husband on the first day of Bocconi, and so many friends for life, as you all have done. But mostly for me, in those days, Bocconi really opened the window on the world, because I met extraordinary people. And I met extraordinary people both in the faculty, just opening my mind to this big world of knowledge, but also extraordinary people in my classroom. I was in DES at the time, and it felt like a classroom. We finished, I think we were 35. So again, friendships for life. So it genuinely changed my life, as it changed all our lives. And I'm incredibly proud, which is why I'm also here tonight, about the fact that Bocconi is such a great success story to this day, and is continuing to change the world. And then you move on to the responsibility point, and every time we are on the board, we also talk about what Bocconi should and can do. And I think being a beacon of culture and learning in Europe today, a top one in the world, that gives you a lot of responsibility in terms of how you manage education, how you lead in education, how you deal with the current challenges of education.